Xero was our biggest partner, and because of that, they also had leverage on their side that if they were to buy someone else, we could be at risk. So I think we also weighed some of those up. We weren't keen, but we thought it was worth exploring to perhaps get to a price. We can always say no, but why turn it down before we get there? We trusted the guys, we had relationships with a lot of the team, so we were willing to explore that.
I think that's what that trade-off of risk really is it's not just the risk of success or failure falling onto you, but it's that burden of uncertainty and complexity that you filter.
Xero's got their Salesforce set up, so we need to consider, what works for Syft on that environment. So that sort of stuff can always be challenging in an integration because you want to run the business. You don't really want to think about integrating tools. We try to shield the people in the team from that sort of noise so people can focus on doing their job, like talking to customers or building products.
But the leadership is that filter of complexity. And what comes out of that filter into the employee base needs to be clarity, focus, and direction.
Yes, they acquired us, but it also kind of plays into our overall vision where we were serving, let's say, 100,000 small businesses with like insights and analytics pre-acquisition. But now by the end of this year, we'll be serving millions of businesses.
What does the next 6 months look like for you? Like what does the rest of 2025 mean? What are you excited about? Hello, and welcome back to the Founder Files. Today I'm talking to Vangelis Kyriazis, who is the CEO and co-founder of Syft. Now, if you haven't heard of Syft or Syft Analytics, they were recently acquired by Xero for $70 million. Now, in rands, that is about 1.25 billion rand. That is obviously a publicly listed entity in Xero, so I can't actually share what that figure is, and Vangelis also speaks about it openly. But that's exactly what we get into today, how he took a bootstrap business and got it to the point of selling it to Xero for over R1 billion. And essentially the details of what that acquisition was like, everything from how they celebrated the deal and the opportunity in the first place, what the due diligence was like, and how they had to manage the handover and the integration of the two companies. We obviously speak a bit about understanding Syft as a business, but also strategically why this was a good acquisition for Xero in the first place, because they aren't the only player in this market that's doing business intelligence for financial analytics. And we get into the point of why does Xero acquire them in the first place and why they were the best bet. But then also how this influenced their decision around saying yes to this acquisition when they were actually soaring. So we get into the topics as usual on the Founder Files. Besides getting into the business, the strategic thinking, understanding the company, we get a lot into his own thinking, his motivation, his decision making, how his mindset has shifted, how his view on the business has shifted. And yeah, it's a great conversation. That's all I can say. So if this is the kind of stuff that you're into and why you are here, I suggest sticking around if you haven't already subscribed to the Founder Files, because these are the conversations that we have. It's really deep, honest, authentic conversations with founders like Vangelis around epic things that they've done in their business, scaling to the points of where they're at. So if you want to get more like this, make sure that you are liking and subscribing and following and doing all those things. It's the best way to support the podcast. It's the best way to make me happy as the host. And it's also just the best way to keep up to date with some amazing scaling stories in the South African ecosystem. Enough for me for now. Let's get into a seriously big deal that's happened. And that is Vangelis from Syft. Welcome to the Founder Files, the podcast that's like eavesdropping on a conversation with a successful entrepreneur over a fireside chat. Join me, Cameron Coots, through this unique experience of unfiltered stories and insights from scaling founders around the globe as they share their ups, downs, and everything in between. Vangelis, welcome to the Founder Files.
Awesome. Great to be on, Cameron. Looking forward to it.
So, man, if people haven't heard about this, right, Xero, I don't know many people who don't know about Xero, right? But I hadn't really heard about Syft outside of just a couple of like whisperings in the entrepreneur community being South African, because I know that I'm not necessarily your direct market. So for those that haven't heard about Syft, haven't heard about this amazing story about you obviously being acquired by Xero recently, just I'm going to redo this, right? So I feel like I should lift you up higher rather than like, hey, I don't know who you are.
No, all good.
So Vangelis, yeah, great to have you here, man. I'm very curious to get into the acquisition story of Xero and how they acquired Syft, especially because of the fact that you've still got very much free reign to operate as your own independent business. So the reason for why they're acquiring you, I'm really fascinated by. But now that I've properly teed up the audience to get excited about this, let's keep teasing them a little bit. But let's give some context, right? Talk to me about what Syft is as a business and your business model.
Yeah, sure, Cameron. So we help businesses get insights into their financial data and specifically insights with their accounting data. So the goal of the platform is to help a business make better decisions and informed decisions using financial data. So think of it as essentially a business intelligence platform, visualizations, scorecards, KPIs on your financial data, but specialized in accounting data. So that's where we'll differ from, let's say, like a Power BI or a Tableau, which is a generalist BI tool, like taking in many different data sets and allowing full customization, to Syft, which is a more like specialized BI tool for small and medium-sized businesses.
Okay. And would Fathom be one of your direct competitors?
Yes, so Fathom's a direct competitor to Syft, a similar space, analytics and insights on accounting data. But yes, they're actually out of Australia. So interestingly enough, we actually had a lot of competitors in different sort of Commonwealth countries and of course the US. So UK, Australia, New Zealand, we were the South African one, and then a few in the US as well. So quite a global competitive landscape. And we're always competing internationally with other software businesses out there.
Nice, man. I mean, that also gives a little bit of extra flavor behind the whole strategic story of the purchase of Syft. Um, I just want to understand a bit about your market, right? So obviously you can be a plugin as a BI tool directly to businesses, and I think where the main ICP there's going to be either they've got their own internalized finance and accounting function, or who you're going to partner with is usually going to be accounting and finance firms or outsourced CFOs, and they're going to use these tools on behalf of their clients. I mean, have I got that right? Are there any other like market profiles in there?
Pretty much spot on. We strictly started back in the day focusing on accounting and bookkeeping firms where they would use our tool to deliver insights to their small business clients. As our business grew, though, it slowly started to progress to small businesses directly that wanted to come onto Syft and use it to run their own reports. You are right; it would typically be a bigger small business coming to us to use the tool, maybe with a financial management team, a bookkeeper, a CFO. And I think good use cases there for a business using us direct would be maybe they're multi-entity, so they've got multiple branches, or multi-entity, multi-country, or stakeholders to report to. They want to report to like a board of directors or external shareholders. So these are good use cases where a small business would come to us directly rather than going to us through their accounting and bookkeeping firm.
Got you. So basically, it's this need of there's a level of like almost technical specialization from a reporting perspective that I need for this, or there's a level of complexity to my operations that I just can't get out of Xero or Sage or QuickBooks, and it's like I need something that can just simplify all of this complexity because in order for me to get that data, clean it every time, it's not worth the effort.
Exactly. Definitely a strong correlation between size of business and value of analytics. As the business grows and gets bigger, there's more data to analyze, more teams that can use the data to make informed decisions. Maybe it's around budgeting, management, things along those lines. So high correlation to size of business and usefulness of our tool. So that's one thing to note. And then as the business gets bigger, I know I said we specialists on accounting data, but they may have complementary data that they may want to bring into Syft to sort of enrich that. So, you've got your accounting data, but maybe you want to bring your CRM data and your Google Analytics data in. So you're tracking not just lag indicators, but also some lead indicators for your business. So
That's
as far
okay.
as
That's epic.
yeah,
And that's the stuff that like any entrepreneur really wants to see is like obviously with the numbers that matter most, but like is this stuff converting? Is this stuff actually working? And this point of everything's in different places, and now I feel like going down this path manually, I need to almost get like self-absorb a data analytics degree just to be able to process this properly. Now I can really cut through the noise.
exactly. A lot of it. So we try to do most things plug and play. I mean, you connect your data and everything's done for you. As a more advanced user, you can go deeper and start to customize, build out your own sort of tools. And then if you think of a typical like data profile for small business, accounting data is probably at the bottom of the funnel. It's historic, backwards looking. It's like sort of prior month data. As you start to move up that funnel, you might have data on your customers and products. Perhaps that's coming out of Xero. Who have you invoiced? Who are you selling to? What products and services are they buying? And then at the top of the funnel, you've got more of your like CRM, lead data, marketing data. So that's kind of more forward looking, and that's going to convert into customer sales, which will then be recorded as accounting data in their sale P&L and balance sheet.
Okay. And the business model, right? It's a typical SaaS kind of subscription. Is it going to be per user, per business as well? Are there modules as well so that you'll switch certain things on, certain things off? Yeah, how does that operate?
Perfect. It's a classic SaaS business. So software as a service, we charge a monthly fee for access to the tool. It's based on the number of entities you connect. So if you've got one business and you connect that to Syft, you're going to pay a certain fee. There is tiering. So there's 3 plans to choose from. You'll start with like an entry-level plan, and then you can upgrade based on functionality or you require, and that would result in a higher fee for you. But if you've got many businesses to connect and you start connecting those to Syft, there would be a fee per entity you actually connect to Syft or underlying business, let's say. So no per user fees, that's unlimited on that side, but essentially tied to, let's say, the size of your business being like the number of individual entities that make it up.
So on that, I mean, like I can see the stickiness of Syft, like really sitting with clients and like kind of growing with them. I can imagine there might be certain situations where accounting firms have lost clients because they've internalized this capability and just brought their tech stack and your products with them. Although probably not like common. It's just I think it's the name of the game. Especially if you're doing your job well, these businesses are going to grow. And but I'm also picturing the fact that when there's a lot of this complexity, when you've got multiple businesses, when you've got a portfolio, or when you've got multiple different like P&Ls really, or business units within the business as well, like to what extent do you bring in a consulting element toward this as well? Right? Is it something that you strictly avoid? You only do the SaaS one? Because I can imagine it's super tempting, especially that's like because that's your background. I mean, we'll get into the founding story now, but talk to me about the service as a service part in the SaaS model, or if that's strictly not what we do.
100%. Look, we've experimented down both. A few years back, we actually had an implementation team in the business where we would, especially for bigger businesses, and a good example is Atari, the gaming company, actually a listed company looking to do a global consolidation of probably 30, 40 of their underlying subsidiaries across Europe, the US, and Africa.
Yes, that's one hell of a
They,
project, eh?
yeah, a hell of a project, but for them internally, they're like, hey, we've got budget for this. We can pay Syft $500 for the software, but why don't we pay them $5,000 to just do the consolidation for us instead of absorbing our team's time? We're a big company. We've got budget for consultants. Let's bring them in. So it's a model
I
we
hope you charge them a lot more than just $5,000.
That's a good example there, but no, I think looking back, they were probably one of our first customers to go on to this sort of implementation model that we called it. The great part about doing like more of the service though, Cameron, is we learned more and more about the product. You know, the more our team was using the tool to do the most advanced things possible with it, we were pushing the boundaries of our software. So we kind of, it informed product decisions and product build decisions. But we ended up realizing it wasn't really sustainable for our team to do it. So now we work with third-party implementation providers who will do more complex things. There's still an element of the service in a SaaS business. So, you know, someone buys our product, we do onboarding, training, there's real-time live support on the platform, almost, well, 24/5 with really quick response. And the team manning that are quite like insightful and very highly skilled in the product. So sometimes we'll do a little bit for the customer, and maybe it would be an hour of our someone in the team diving in and just building it out for them, building a KPI or uploading something. But anything north of, let's say, like an hour of work would probably be like, hey, you need to do this yourself or chat to an implementation partner to do. So I think you have to be cognizant of that. There'll always be customers that ask for a lot, but you do need to kind of weigh it up. So we do give like a very high touch approach, considering our product's like very inexpensive, or it's not like a really expensive $10,000 annual contract value product, we high touch just because we have the people and we kind of fanatical about making sure the customers get what they want. So our team do go above and beyond, but we don't want to go like over a certain line in providing that service or consulting element. We'll rather enable the business to do it, or most of our customers are accountants and bookkeepers. We're hoping they can then provide those services to the underlying businesses directly.
I mean, so how do you draw that line, right? Between should we take this on, or is at this point it's like, let me actually pass you on to the likes of an Iridium, and maybe they can help you with this end-to-end journey. Like, what's the kind of problems, pain points, kind of things that would say, listen, we need someone else to do this?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. And funny enough, Iridium are one of those implementation partners as well, where we'll refer other accounting and bookkeeping firms worldwide to them, or small businesses direct. I think our team would always try, first version, first port of call, try do it for the customer. If the request is extreme, we've had people ask, hey, I've got 100 small businesses or entities that I want to combine into a reporting group. They all need these custom layouts. There's this other complementary data that I need uploaded for all 100. So I think you kind of quickly see the scope of the project. Is this 40 hours, or is this 1 hour where I'm uploading one thing? Our team will always do it. And if the customer keeps asking over and over again, they'll probably defer it to their manager, and then we can kind of make a call and connect them with one of the implementation partners. So the team will rather try it, because the more our support team or customer success team use the product, they're probably also figuring out new things. So we never like hesitant to jump in and like do it for the customer. I'd say, yeah, my guideline is typically like less than an hour. Cool. More than an hour and like many hours, perhaps refer to a third party.
I think the simple point is that this is being applied to finance, but it really is about analytics and business intelligence, right? So the foundation is like how well consolidated and clean is your data to be able to get good analytics from anyway. And the point there is like there's a certain level of just readiness that you're going to need to onboard and utilize our system. But but before we even talk about being Syft ready, is like, are you just BI ready? And if you're not BI ready, then it's like, we need to get you BI ready, and then like come back.
Exactly. I think they're like most will struggle with that at first, how their account's named, all things sitting in the right place. Is everything even classified correctly before they get to Syft? If the data going in doesn't look great, the reports coming out won't look amazing on the outside. So there's an element of that. I think a lot of the time people are in quite a good place, which helps. And I think, we're always ready to assist. I think our team, and even me personally, I've had a reminder each month to like log into a person's account and have to do something for them, just because we've always taken a very high touch approach. Like no ask was kind of like too much for us. So I think we never said like no until it gets like really, really big and we have to defer it to someone else.
I mean, this is a super left field example, but it reminds me of my investor. And he's in his 80s now, but he was the guy that brought ATMs to South Africa. And when he was first, I don't know who his first customer was, but when he was dealing with the CEO of that business, and they were like, well, what happens if it's like 2 o'clock in the morning and we need support, we need help? And he's like, here's my phone number, you'll phone me. And I was like, I love that. I just love that again as an attitude perspective, is that that's the proper founder mode kind of CEO thing. Is it's like, this is not my call center or anything like that. Is like, I'll solve this problem directly.
And it helps you uncover more problems to solve. It's always been like the first port of call to like inform product decisions, to keep building the software. So it's like the business and the software is all about solving problems and maybe helping you automate certain things. And we'll only uncover like deeper problems or additional problems the more we talk to the customers as well.
So I was actually about to pull us out. I was like, okay, we've gone down a rabbit hole and a tangent now, but I want to go deeper because I've got actually a better idea of a question to ask. Obviously the whole topic of founder mode that like got spoken about a lot like last year and then just stopped being spoken about. But to this point of, now that you've really scaled this business to the point of being acquired by Xero, integrated in them, still don't even know the answer to that. We're gonna get there. But this challenge of, I want to work on the business, not in the business, but also want to operate in the business as well and be at the customer interface. And I want to work on product. And it's kind of like, how do you manage all of that, right? How do you manage your own desire and motivation to do this versus confusing your team around and maybe like feeling like you're stepping over them, or just managing your own time? How do you do that in a way where you can be really in the detail and the nitty-gritty and still stay at the level that you need to guide the strategy of the business and still maintain your sanity and let everyone else have some clarity in terms of why you're getting involved in this stuff? Right. So I think I framed that in quite of a big way, but like, do you understand what I'm asking?
100%. I think it's always a juggling act and there's never like a perfect solution. You'll get dragged into like an email chain, or you'll want to talk to a specific customer. Maybe, I think it's kind of just like being open to customer feedback. You don't want to step away from talking to customers too soon. I think I've always
Or
kept
ever.
like, yeah, ever. You're right. So I think it always keeps you in that like feedback loop, and hearing from your customers is great. So I think I'm fortunate maybe right now is that I still attend a lot of events. I still receive and respond to emails from customers, but I'm probably not driving like any specific deals through. We've got a sales team manning like the deal flow, but they can always call me into a chat, and I can talk to that customer. No, I don't have any like golden nugget for you on that though, Cameron. I think it's a juggling act. You constantly like under pressure. You've got a million things to do in terms of high level on the business. Maybe it's recruitment, hiring, planning, strategy, a bit of product. And then though you just have to fill in those open slots with like customer interactions as well, whether it's email, calls, or in person. I think all of those, you should never like shy away from those as well. But yeah, I wouldn't say I've nailed it, and I wouldn't say I have the perfect solution. And I think you have to just like stay close. Don't ever like push too much away from you. Rather like dive in. If you get an email, respond to it. Don't forward it on to someone else. It keeps you close to the customers at the end of the day, and you never know what you can learn. A lot of people, I think now I'm quite fortunate. People will message me on LinkedIn, so I'll jump on a call with them. They're like, "Hey, I'm trying Syft. This is awesome. Would love to chat to you." So I try to take as many of those calls as possible as well, and always has like 1 or 2 chats a week just from like LinkedIn reach outs, which also helps.
Well, I think that also is testament to why you've been able to succeed, and kind of your edge in the market is the level of relationship you're willing to build from your customers. The fact that as like founder and CEO is doing this, then you best believe that this is going to be a cultural element of what the business is based around.
Agreed.
Um, I'm not going to let this topic go too easily, because I know that there's going to be something practical and useful out of this. It made me think of the conversation that I had with Simon Ellis from Gem, and he referred to the CEO of Salesforce, and he'll go to like the World Economic Forum, and there's a stair he'll sit on for 15 minutes, and customers will just line up. I think that's the point, right? Like you should always be maybe not selling in the sales term, but always dealing with customers. But I want to know specifically around like it means that there's also an intentionality to this. It might not be like super like governance like structured. This is my role and responsibility. But if this is the point where it's something that you need to have some mental bandwidth for, there's some other stuff that you need to let go of, right? And so, how have you kind of structured your thinking around your own role in the business to make sure that you're fundamentally prioritized on really people? If I'm reading between the lines, whether it's people internally or people externally, like that's the main aspect of what it is that you're dealing with. So how is it that you've kind of governed the boundaries around your own job so that there's stuff that you're like, there's some more the things, what have you chosen not to do so that you can free up the freedom to do the stuff that you are doing?
Sure, there's a good one. And you're right. I think it boils down to like people at the end of the day being kind of founder and CEO, but different in the post acquisition world from Xero, but still like a manager for the business. I think mainly focused, as you say, on like the internal people, and then the external people being the customers. So that is what it's kind of boils down to. I think we've always been quite intentional around maybe putting in the right teams, and kind of modeling our software business off other software businesses globally. So reading a lot from, let's say, like there's a guy in the US, Jason Lemkin from Sasta, who posts a lot around like team structure, team roles, things along those lines. It's quite extensive on like SaaS, which we are like a software as a service business. And we've always like formed teams around that, whether it's sales, customer success, support, product design, and engineering. We've got like 6 distinct teams, and then strong people leaders or managers in each of those that are taking on the majority of the work, but then it can always bring you into certain things. So I find my role more and more around maybe like recruitment, people internally and then people externally being customers. Still hard though, sometimes, Cameron, you look back at the week and you're like, what did I do this week? You're putting out fires, you're manning email, just chatting on sort of Slack, and you kind of like, what did I actually accomplish this week when you look back on it? Because you pulled in many different directions and you maybe don't have like one like big task that you're focusing on. So I would say, again, probably no golden solution on that. I mean, I can think back 2 years ago, I was still doing like sales calls and jumping in when we had a resignation to kind of put out fires for like a few months in a specific region, versus now where it is a little bit more high level, not as many like daily recurring things, but a few more kind of high level, mainly like people focused, but nothing like too demanding where it's like an hourly commitment on certain things. So I think anything that's maybe recurring and where you think someone can take it on, I've chosen to like try delegate that to someone. If it's recurring weekly or monthly, why not bring someone in, teach them the process and let them run with it? So I'd say trying to focus on more ad hoc things than recurring things has maybe been my approach to it. But again, I'll probably look back next month and be like, hey, I should be doing more of this more than that. So probably evaluating and kind of adjusting as you go.
Quick one, while I have your attention, I've built something for you. It's called the Founder Roadmap, and it's designed to give you sharp clarity on where your business is leaking time, energy, and money, and exactly what to do about it. In just 15 minutes, you'll see how scale ready your business really is, where you're stuck, where you're leaking cash, and what to focus on next. Now, this isn't some generic theoretical download. It's built from everything I've learned across 120 plus episodes of the Founder Files and working directly with over 150 founders. This is totally free, there's no sign up, and there's no email request. Now, what's the catch? Well, there isn't one. I'm not doing this to market to you. I'm doing this because you've invested your time into the Founder Files. And because I'm so grateful for that, I wanted to invest my learnings back into you. So hopefully you can take some of the guesswork out of growth and build a business that doesn't fall apart the moment that you take a holiday. So, if you're serious about building something sustainable, not just busy, then this is the next best 15 minutes you'll probably spend on your business. So hit the link in the episode description and give the Founder Roadmap a go to get some of your time and money back. That just sounds, that's the name of the game of entrepreneurship, really, is staying on your toes, and everything's about people at the end of the day. But I think this is a good segue to actually get into the Xero one, because what you've insinuated is that you've still got a lot of freedom, right? In terms of how you run the company, how you run your role. And more often than not, when a business is acquiring another business for a strategic purpose, right? It's kind of a complementary product stack that they can use to quickly acquire customers within a certain region. It's directly plugged into their own value chains as the accounting software. Now we've got the BI software. Usually when things like that happen, they'll kind of like integrate the people. They'll take control of the IP and the tech and make it part of their own product range. That person will now become like an exec or like VP or something within that company for a specific role. But that doesn't seem like the case here at all, right? It seems like you're still totally in control of running Syft. So I guess just talk to me about, this. It's obviously a big story of the whole Xero element, and there's so many different topics to talk about. And it's probably going to be a long answer to answer my question to give the context, but like I really want to know, like this level of freedom that you have after being acquired by a company like Xero, why and how that's the case.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we first sort of found out about Xero back in like 2017, 2018, and then decided to integrate our tool into Xero. So we'll pull that accounting data from Xero and use it to provide businesses with that data. And the beauty of that is it's always going to refresh daily or update on click. So Xero was one of our earliest integration partners sort of 6-7 years ago. And that kind of kicked off a relationship with Xero over the last 6 or 7 years, where we'd travel globally to all of their events, exhibits at their events. And those are typically events targeted at accountants and bookkeepers, which were our primary target sets that would use Syft to provide insights to their small business customers. And that kind of brought us closer to them over time, 6-7 years of working with Xero, of being integrated with them. Eventually we had probably around 70 to 80,000 Xero businesses connected to Syft towards the end of last year. I mean, talking to maybe more your specific question now, and we can dive into the acquisition after that. I think, Xero has, in their latest results at the end of March, there's 4.3 million businesses globally that use Xero. And Xero has a suite of invoicing, bank feeds, expense management, and reports. If you use Xero, you can run reports within Xero for your business. I think Xero wanted to provide their small business clients with more analytics and reporting. And a lot of the stuff in Xero is maybe a little bit dated. It's quite tabular, very sort of like white pages, not too graphical. And I think Syft was like a key solve for that. Lots more visualizations, easier for small business to see trend and seasonality. And then when you look at like 4.3 million customers for Xero and kind of bringing this capability from Syft in, it's very complementary because they hadn't invested too much in Xero's reporting stack over the years. And this kind of is a step change for Xero to give like awesome analytics and visualizations to millions of businesses quite quickly. And we're already sort of in product with Xero over time. I think the acquisition has gone well. And as you say, we're quite autonomous and, we're still building what we want to build. And I think that's also testament, you've bought this team of 80 people in Johannesburg, plugging into like a broader Xero that's 5,000 people. I think we are specialists in the space. We've been working with financial data and insights for 8 years. We know what we're doing, and that's why they've acquired it. So I think they do want to give us the space, Xero, to sort of build and thrive and deliver on like our shared vision. And that would be providing millions of businesses with awesome insights and analytics to help them make better decisions. So you're right. It hasn't really been absorbed. We're still a separate business unit. We've got our own functions. We actually aggressively growing the team. So we'll be north of 100 by the end of the year. So they're doubling down on the investments in Syft because they see the value. It's kind of, it's been acquired for a reason, which is to like provide these businesses with amazing insights, and they think we can do it rather than take over too much control and kind of like dictate what we need to do. Let us keep running. So on that, maybe Cameron, there's still there's two products now. There's Syft as a website, Syft standalone, call it, where a small business can come to us direct, or an accounting and bookkeeping firm, and get the full suite of like analytics and insights that they would want, like very powerful. But the other product, we're also embedding Syft within Xero. So if you're using Xero and you're invoicing your customers, you'll start to see our visualizations pop up within Xero. So that's like the other stream, and that would be a lot lighter and like a lot simpler of a version for a small business to consume, rather than the full Syft, which is quite like powerful and extensive. I hope that answered
Okay.
the question. It was
Yeah,
lengthy.
partially. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't
Cool.
be doing what I would do if I wasn't going deeper into this. But
Yeah.
because even the way you originally answered it was, the 4.3 million customers, or the three businesses to be precise, is um, means that in this wave of at least in just improving the user interface and the user experience, right? It's like there's a level up there because 100%. I'm a Xero client as well, and so it's a really good piece of software just because it's so simple to use. But like it's still just it's accounting software, right? And it does the job. And I think the where they won in the market was that I mean, I'm for the record, I'm also a customer of Sage, but for something else. But that's just because of the accountants that I had for that just used Sage, and I'm like, I put the two next to each other, and I'm like, I would never use Sage again, right? Sorry, Sage, if I ever end up having a conversation with you, improve your UX. But it's so simple and intuitive, but there is also this element of like, if you don't keep iterating that, you will start falling behind because there's this engagement level that needs to happen. So you've spoken about that directly, and it's again why I'm thinking around, why not purchase this business, take this product stack to integrate into what Xero already is as a tool to improve what we're doing, to like double down on our competitive edge within this market. That was what the question was going on in the back of my head, right? And you're like, well, actually no, because there's just too much complexity of what our product does, because this is a finance BI product. Xero is an accounting piece of software. They can feed into one another, but like what this does versus what this does, yes, they need to work together, but like it's fundamentally different things with different features and different knowledge required to get what's out of this. So there's an element of a basic layer of what you can build in, so they can immediately start improving that user experience through what it is that you're doing. But it's still it's still that point of, it's like Xero doesn't want to be Syft and Syft doesn't want to be Xero. We want to complement one another.
Exactly. I think there's complementary overlap in certain instances, and that's the stuff we'll embed. You as a small business owner, I don't think you want to see like the full extent of Syft's forecasting and like multi-entity stuff, which will sit in our separate platform that's for that advanced, like very complex businesses and accounting firms. But you do want a better experience within Xero. You want more visualizations, you want cool dashboards, you want like a short-term cash flow projection. So I think you've got use cases where it's awesome and it's light. And if you do want more, you could probably still come to Syft. And then we think of like Xero, so maybe more on like why Syft and why bias. I think last year, February, Xero announced their strategy over the next 3 years. And it's essentially centered on something called the 3x3, three key markets: Australia, the UK, and the US, and three core products: accounting, payroll, and payments. Now, Syft sits within that accounting stack. And we had customers in all three markets, and we were actually strongest in the US. So that was complementary. We were across the three markets that Xero already played in, and we were a very like complementary tool in the accounting stack, not just for like small businesses like your business where you'd get these visualizations, but a lot of Xero's built off accounting firms, like we mentioned Iridium earlier. Tons of accountants use Xero. Accountants or Xero as like key channel partner. And if we acquired Syft, we could also give them a tool that will help them service their customers. So I think complementary, that there was market overlap, a strong like fit, capability that they were like, hey, we could build this, but it would take us maybe 2 years. We could buy it and it would be instant, or we could partner. And Xero's partnered with payroll providers, payment providers. So I think in certain instances, partnering can be beneficial where it's like a deep partnership, but maybe like buy and build, and maybe we were too core to partner. Let's just buy it and integrate it and get it done. And then our 2000 plus engineering and product team at Xero doesn't need to think about it as much. We've got these new like 80 people from Syft that can own this problem.
Mm. Yeah, what you spoke to there is a simple like 3-word framework I use for, and it applies at a micro and it applies at a macro level in business, but build, buy, or borrow. And it's like, what is this capability that I need in the business? And it can be just something as simple as I'm a 5-person team and I need a development capability. So do I build this internally by building the skill set and working on like being a better developer? Do I buy by hiring someone, or do I borrow by outsourcing to a development agency? And the same thing happens at a macro level in terms of, it's like, okay, cool, we're growing aggressively around the globe. We've got this expansion strategy. Am I going to build this internal capability for finance BI? Am I going to borrow it by partnering with someone in like an embedded partnership going globally as well? Or am I actually just going to buy it, right? And I think that determination always depends on, one, your context, but also two, what capability you're bringing in. Because to your point there, they would have gone through the exact same thinking, but for payroll, it's like borrow makes more sense.
Yes, and I think also maybe size of the third party there. With in the US, Xero's partnered with Gusto, which is the same size as Xero as like a company and like valuation. But
Yeah,
maybe
that
when
would
you
be
look,
a merger now.
yeah, when you look at Syft, it's kind of like we were quite small in comparison. So maybe like partnerships or the borrow, as you say, probably works when the partners are a little bit more equally sized. But maybe like buy or build, it was a better consideration in this vertical for Xero.
100%. And I guess what I want to know is straight to the meat of like the question, because I like being direct. Why did they pick Syft, right? I mean, there's a lot of competitors in the market, lots of players doing similar things. You, seeing as I'm using the word insinuate a lot today, you insinuated that a part of it is that because you've already got this presence in a couple of like key regions and areas, particularly in the US, which is quite an important one. Yeah, besides that, why did they go with you instead of any other players?
Well, I guess, yeah, it's a good question. I think we are the best in the space, though, Cameron. Like best product. We're always like hyper customer focused, but also let's build a great product. So I think Xero realized that, we had tens of thousands of Xero connected entities. So their marketplace was also a validation for people are using Syft, they're connecting to Syft. We were one of the biggest apps on their ecosystem. So that was information they could use. The space had seen some consolidation previously. Sage, who you mentioned earlier, bought a UK business called Futurely back in, I think, 2022, which is also another reporting and analytics app. And Fathom, who you mentioned at the start of our conversation, were acquired by a company called Access Group. I'd say they're more of like a PE roll-up business in the UK with maybe 80 or 90 different software businesses that they've acquired, Fathom being one of them. So they were acquired back in 2023. So we've seen some consolidation in the market with two of our direct competitors being acquired by Sage and Access Group. There were other competitors that are still in the market, but I think Syft had probably the most number of underlying connected entities, a great product, and I think we always try to differentiate versus the incumbent players with a little bit of functionality. So this is a bit technical, but most reporting apps would stick to like the profit and loss in the balance sheet, so account level reporting. At Syft, we always went down to the underlying transaction. So you could always drill into the underlying data and see what's making that number up. And that would give us insights into also customer and product data, depending on whether you were invoicing from your accounting tool. So we always had a richer suite of analytics because most reporting apps focused only on the P&L and balance sheet, which is account level. So an example of that is you see advertising and marketing as an expense in your P&L, but you can't click on that to be like, oh, I spent more on Google ads or Facebook ads. What is actually driving that? And we always had that underlying data. So we built in a lot of verticals as well. We didn't just do like reporting. We also did forecasting, data review. So we're kind of touching on like a few areas, which kind of made it a holistic app that could even like touch on more than just the reporting and analytics space. So I think a few reasons, maybe the relationship as well over time. We had been integrated for 6 or 7 years. We'd attended basically every event since 2022 with Xero globally from New Zealand through to the US. So I think the relationship was growing. And then when new leadership joined Xero, a new CEO, Sukhinder Singh Cassidy, who's our current CEO, I think that also drives like a new mandate. So Sukhinder brought the strategy of this 3x3, the 3 key markets and the 3 products. And I think as like a new CEO and a new management team, an acquisition is a great strategy for a listed business because Xero is trading at a specific multiple. Anything they buy, let's say, at or below that multiple is probably going to instantly add enterprise value to the business. And with cash on the balance sheet, why not deploy that into strategic acquisitions like Syft to accelerate on your vision instead of trying to build it over like 2 years?
Yeah, firstly, also shout out to the CEO of Xero, because I mean that 3x3 point is like strategy is very complex, but this is one thing I'd love to say is it doesn't have to be complicated, and that's the perfect example of it. Because where it often goes wrong in execution, specifically when you've got like a 5,000 person company and you've got multiple acquisitions as well, is this filtration of like what is actually the strategy of the business. The very large majority of people don't know. But now with something like that, it's like, what's the strategy of the business? 3 regions, 3 products. That's what we're going for. It's like, okay, cool. That makes sense. I know how I fit into that. Cool. But that would have come off a lot of like complex thinking, and just immediately that stood out to me, and I love that. But also, I think the points of your acquisition, specifically when compared to your competitors, look, I'd much rather be in your shoes, right? I think the versus being like absorbed by a private equity entity is, versus now directly into something that's connected with your value chain, the freedom that you've been given. I can't obviously speak for the Sage side of things because I don't know what the nature of that acquisition would have been. But it just seems like you've got an amazing deal here, right? It's like you've got there's 4.3 million businesses embedded in them. They've got a now material interest in order to like help you grow this business as well. So not only is your access going out there, but you're able to now leverage their ecosystem. You've got the freedom to keep running it, which I know so many entrepreneurs are afraid of. Is the moment that I am acquired, or like even if there's a partial exit, what happens to my freedom, autonomy, and control of the business, but you still have. So my question is now, what's the catch?
I think, well, yeah, I think we spent a lot of time with Xero pre the acquisition, Cameron, which also helped. I think I sort of, at the end of the day, we knew Xero really well because we had worked with them. And the biggest challenge in our business was always distribution. We've got a great product, we're selling it, we're building a great business. We were always like growing on month of 8 years. And Xero was like the key to solving our distribution, which, yes, they acquired us, but it also kind of plays into our overall vision where we were serving, let's say, 100,000 small businesses with like insights and analytics pre acquisition. But now by the end of this year, we'll be serving millions of businesses. So it's still very aligned with, we're seeing our product in the hands of millions and millions of businesses around the world. So I think that lined up really, really well. So off the bat, we were very aligned, and like, they were solving their challenge and we solving us scaling the business, even though we don't own it anymore. And then there's like other benefits for not just us. Okay, there's a monetary benefits, there's growth for our team. So yeah, definitely changes. We are part of a bigger org. I know you've mentioned that we've got a lot of freedom, and which we do to run the business, but we are part of a bigger organization of 5,000 people, and it is a big business. So there are certain way you need to do things in certain ways moving forward. But I think we were bought because we're great at building product, and we're great at like running this type of business. So I think Xero is also cognizant of not impacting that. And I think the leadership, which has changed significantly over the last 2 to 3 years, our entire executive team now sits in the Bay Area, San Francisco. So I think they also bring with them like a wealth of experience from other software and tech businesses. They're cognizant that most acquisitions don't work out because you suffocate the acquired business, and let's give this team. So our chief product and technology officer, Dia, she knows what she's doing. She's been around the block, and she knows that she doesn't want to constrict our growth. We're running fast and we're running quick, so she wants that to continue. So I think they've seen a lot and done a lot, years in like the Bay Area and the tech ecosystem, that they know that's not impose certain things on this team and kind of stifle innovation. So I think fortunate in that. So probably acquisitions at this level, you need that kind of board level driver to push these through, and that sponsor that kind of advocates for it, but then it also unlocks certain roadblocks which help you like integrate and continue to move quickly. So we're 6 months in, and I think we've been fortunate to have like a number of kind of things lining up in the right direction that have made it successful so far.
Yeah, man. And the fact that you're only 6 months in, and the way that you're speaking about this sounds like that integration, the change management's actually been super smooth. But I think that the part of the reason why is just the reason why we're making this acquisition, the reason why we still want to give this autonomy and freedom was all still incredibly clear. And the answer to that is that, like, one, because it's obviously part of the strategy, expanding into their regions, product lines that they need to do. There's an improvement to core products, but there's also now a complementary product. And the reason why they're choosing you is, one, is because just best product in the market, right? Even from a technical level down to, and I love the example that you mentioned with just small business owners like me. It's like when I'm looking at Xero, like I don't really have a need for Syft right now, specifically because I don't have lots of complexity in transactions, given the fact that I'm a services business. But I just, one thing would be nice is like if I go onto like a black and white, if I go into my P&L, it's like, can we just change this from black and white? Can I just see like red and green? Right? That's all I need right now. Right? It's just those basics, and you're like guys, Syft is way better than this. But the point of the depth of what you've built speaks to why they acquired you. And the point is that you don't want to stifle that. You want to let that thrive and give it the freedom to do so. But now this goes back to the fundamental point of, you still need to integrate, and freedom now needs to operate within a framework, but now it's no longer your framework, it's their framework. So besides this like original clarity in terms of why we're acquiring you, why we want to give you the freedom because you are the best at this, it's the reason why we bought you. What is this framework that's being applied? What's the changes that you need to make and adopt as an individual, as an organizational structure and design, and as a culture to really integrate properly with Xero?
Makes sense. I think there's a lot to do when you know, business of 5,000 people, it is a little bit more corporate, and there's things like security because we operate with data and financial data we have to take very seriously. Not that pre-acquisition we weren't taking it seriously. We were accredited. There's a auditing standard SOC 2 in the US where we were audited and we were certified to that level. But Xero is a much bigger business, and of course security is an even bigger thing to look out for, because any loss of financial data in that space, it has like really negative impacts on a software business and really negative reputational impacts. So there's lots more like systems and security that have been put in place, lots more training to do that the team need to adopt to. Um, we still, I mean, maybe a good thing and a bad thing. We based in Johannesburg, we're an office of 80 people, but there was no other office in Johannesburg for Xero. The Xero office in South Africa is in Cape Town. So our office is still standalone. We haven't like merged offices. Our office remains, it's a Xero office now. So we do have Xero colleagues popping in and out. But perks that are offered at our office remain, like free lunch, free Red Bulls that I've been sipping on, free coffee. So there's a lot of that like perk and cultural stuff that's sort of been the same and that hasn't been changed post acquisition, whereas other offices don't have like the same level of perks. We've managed to keep like some of that, which has helped on the culture. Things like recruitment is a little bit slower because it's a bigger business. There's more like checks and balances and approvals needed to budgets to actually like hire certain people. But I think from that perspective, it's not like stifling. There's changes, and it's, I think, being like a young team that's continued to like innovate and build product and change, we're happy to roll with those changes. We were cognizant that some changes would happen, but it hasn't been things that have materially impacted like the way we work, our culture at the business, which is quite like in office, in person, sort of move quick and build things. A lot of that has stayed the same. So maybe some things in terms of like systems, software, recruitment have changed, but for the majority, we still like the same people in the same office, building the same products. And because those three big things are like the same, it's not really like negative, or it's not affecting the way we move.
Okay. So we've spoken a bit about the outcomes and the pros and cons there. What I want to get onto is the experience share of the detail of the experience, right? Everything from the deal making side of things all the way through to how this integration has been handled and navigated. Um, yeah, let's obviously just start with first things first. Tell me about the moment when you knew this deal was legitimate and going to happen. Was this everything from like Xero lawyers, outside lawyers? Did you bring your own lawyers in? Founders around a table? Did you fly over there? Did they fly over here? Give me like I want details now.
Cool. Yeah, sure. Happy to talk you through the story, Cameron. So Kinder, the CEO, I think she had been in the role for about a year, and she was visiting Cape Town with her family as well as Xero South Africa. This was back in December 2023. So she thought she'd stop by Syft and like see what it's all about. So flew up to Johannesburg for the day. It was interesting though. It was the 15th of December. We had load shedding at the office, and the guys above us were throwing a massive party in the basement. So it was probably like 35 degrees cooking. We had to have the doors open, and there was loud music banging from the basement below us where other guys were throwing their like year-end party. So not the best day in terms of like environment around us, but cool to meet her in person. She like put in the efforts to come visit us and like see what the business was about. And we thought, yeah, I mean, when a CEO of like a gigantic software business, our biggest integration partner, reaches out, it's like you kind of get your mind thinking like maybe they're thinking about buying Syft. She wouldn't just fly up to Johannesburg. She was in Cape Town. You don't just
Yeah,
fly
this
up to
isn't just a
Joburg.
courtesy call.
Yeah, it's an interesting one to choose to fly up for the day. So that kind of kicked off the process. We actually didn't hear from Xero for a few months, and in about March, she asked if she could fly the four of us who are the founders of the business out to San Francisco to meet her leadership team and talk about what we can do together. So that was March of 2024. So we were obviously thinking possible that they might want to talk around an acquisition, but they probably want to talk around like the borrow or the partnership model where they want to like license or embed some of our functionality. So pretty cool.
Before we continue, just what was that like? I mean, as a moment now, as a leadership team of 4 people, it's like, oh my God, Xero is flying us out to the US to talk about what we can do together. Guys, we've made it.
Yeah, pretty much. And to I guess like to San Francisco Bay Area, it's like, oh, we've reached the top of like the tech pinnacle. Yeah. What more can you ask for? So yeah, pretty cool. We were quite chuffed and
How did you
pretty
celebrate that,
excited.
man? Right? I mean, like, so I mean, when did the celebration kick in? Because I think this is a moment of, yeah, whether you're in the person who's like the goal and success of an entrepreneurial journey is exit versus any other kind of success criteria. There's still this moment where it's like there is a culmination of all the work that you've done. Did the celebration start happening on the plane, or was it
I feel like maybe still too soon to celebrate at that point. Like we were pretty chuffed, we knew like this is epic. We've kind of like we built a great business. So we were quite chuffed with that. But again, we were really positive about the business. So we weren't flying there to sell the business. We were growing every month. The team was expanding. We had full autonomy. We were a bootstrapped business. So we were completely like making our own decisions and building our own business. So we weren't like going in there gun ho to like sell our business either. We wanted to see what we could really do to partner with them because we were still like loving building the business on our own terms as well. So cool to meet the team, I think, and obviously a great trip. Like discussed a lot about our business, and I think towards the end of the discussions, it was brought up. Look, we'd love to buy Syft. Can we explore that? And our initial answer to that though was also, we still too early. We only a team of like probably back then like 65, 70 people. We're still growing and we were like, we're probably too small to buy at the moment. We want to keep going. We want to go on the journey of scaling to like $50 million as a business. So we were still loving the journey and loving where we were at. So I think we were also like, we appreciate the ask, but we think it's probably too early to sell. But then having reflected on it for like a week or two, we were like, hey, it's worth us exploring this. And that kind of kicked off a DD process from about April last year onwards, Cameron, where we flew to Auckland to kind of kick off a due diligence process. They flew to South Africa. I flew to the UK. So I think we met them like pretty much every continent. And legals kind of kicked off from like August, once we were through the DD, which was, sorry, I see you've got a
Yeah, I
question
want
there.
to
Let's
pause in the
dive
due
in. Maybe I
diligence. Yeah,
accelerated
because
too quick. Yeah.
no, it's not. It's not. It's fine. I mean, it's your story, man. I think
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm doing my job of pausing you where I want to go deeper, but I want to go to that moment of because I spot on, right? I think all founders would think that way, where it's we're in cruise control right now, right? The business is growing. We're totally bootstrapped. We have all the equity. We have no reason to sell. But interestingly enough, in that situation, is Xero's got every reason to buy. So it's like it's only going to get more expensive if the longer we wait. So, but with that is also comes a bit of bargaining leverage on your guys' side, right? So I think it's the same thing if I'm raising capital. The best time to raise capital is when you don't need it, right? This is just human beings and economics 101 of supply and demand, really. But what I want to know is what changed your mind, right? Because you seem to have changed your own mind there.
Yeah, true. No, I think it was worth exploring at the point. We had seen some consolidation in the industry. As I mentioned, Sage had acquired another business. Fathom was acquired. So we had seen some consolidation in the space where big players were buying similar apps in the reporting and analytics space, and that was maybe a year and 2 years prior. I think when you've run the business for sort of like 8 years and you've built the business, we thought it's worth, and there's a lot of other apps in the space. If it's not us, it could be someone else. And Xero being our biggest partner, if they decide to buy a competitor to us, and suddenly like the taps to a lot of our distribution and marketing and great kind of relationships are turned off, what does that do to our valuation? So I think Xero was our biggest partner, and because of that, they also had leverage on their side that if they were to buy someone else, we could be at risk. So I think we also weighed some of those up, Cameron. And you're right, we weren't keen, but we thought it was worth exploring to perhaps get to a price. Be like, let's see what we're worth, and we've built this business for 8 years. It's pointless. The decision was, why turn down even like having the negotiation? If we get to a price, we can always say no. But why turn it down before we get there? We trusted the guys. We had relationships with a lot of the team. So we were willing to explore that, which I think also came about because we knew them. If it was maybe a third party like PE business, you might have been a bit more hesitant to go down like a DD process, which took like 3 to 4 months and is quite taxing in terms of like documentation, things along those lines. But yeah, a few factors. I think you also think of like the team and like, it's material not just for us, but for the people we've started the business with and a lot of our early employees. It's also a very material exit that sets them up on like a good path in their life. So I think a number of things came into play in that decision, but still a difficult one to make. And we thought, let's go for a price and let's kick off the DD was kind of the decision making, just to see where we land.
Yeah, I mean, I also just love the maturity of the leadership team in that moment, because it's also thinking through the consequences of saying no. So the temptation to say no is because of the fact that we're still fully in control and like the valuation we can get later. But it's like, then it's like, okay, well, let's just pause for a moment. If Xero is really intentional about doing this, is like they're looking at us as the best case, but that doesn't mean that they're not courting others. It's like we can't think that we're the only swipe right on Tinder right now, right? So I think with that view is, it's like, the ship will sail, but then also strategically for the business in terms of our integration partner, our ability to acquire customers. Like if we say no to this, what's going to happen in terms of us actually being like hamstrung in our ability to grow? So like if all things being equal and the Xero wasn't interested, like we would just keep doing what we're doing. But this actually does create a bit of a turning point, like a shift in direction of the company, because it's like either way, what Xero chooses to do is going to impact the market and impact our market. And I think we need to be very aware and considerate of that.
And we're very, maybe back to the business model that we started with, we're very dependent on these integration partners like Xero. The entire tool is powered by your Xero data. So without like an integration partner, we're a downstream tool on top of Xero. And yes, we integrate with Sage, QuickBooks, and other accounting tools, and sort of certain e-commerce platforms like Shopify, Square, things like that. But the majority of our customers and data was coming from Xero. So we were dependent on them to some extent as well. So we weren't just a standalone business where like that relationship could really materially impact our business.
Feel free to not answer this question. But
Cool.
what I'm obviously very curious now is about the remuneration package of the founders of the company. Now with the business being acquired, right? I'm not, for the record, I'm not asking for your salary, but I'm asking for more from an equity perspective. Is there still a remaining equity stake in Syft? Has this now you've been given shares into Xero? What is there still a skin in the game element towards your rem package?
No, happy to answer that, Cameron. And it is public knowledge as well. So with Xero being ASX listed, it was published, the deal. So 100% acquisition of Syft. So we no longer have any shares in the Syft business. In terms of the deal, it was a $70 million deal with Xero, $40 million upfront, with $30 million in various earnouts as well as shares in Xero, contingent on like various factors. So those might be a little bit more confidential to the deal. So we do have lots of shares in Xero, and even in that 40 million portion that we received up front, I think 10 million of that was in Xero shares and 30 million in cash. So we've received shares in Xero. So we are sort of incentivized to grow that business. And then in terms of like the 30 million, which is kind of for earnouts and sticking around at the business, that's over time. So again, parts in cash and parts in Xero shares there as well.
Yeah, man. Okay, so now obviously, and now this is, I don't know what the shareholding of Syft was like before the exit, but 720 million rand upfront is quite a nice pay package, even though it's still very much there. So firstly, just congratulations, right? I think
Well,
the hard
thank you.
work's paid off,
Appreciate it.
in
Yeah.
terms of what you've been able to do there. But surely now you're celebrating.
Yes. No, definitely. I think, yeah, I mean, you're right. Material for us and, as I say, for the team. So We also had 15% of the business was in a staff share scheme for some early staff. So also nice for them to participate in it, and then divided amongst sort of the four of us founders. But yeah, celebrations. I think we sort of signed the deal in September. That was when the paperwork was completed, subject to some other conditions and things like that. So yeah, lots of celebrations. But I think you always, we probably don't stop enough to like celebrate the wins. I think we did celebrate the wins, with the team. We had like an epic blowout year-end event last year. So it is cool, but I think you kind of still take enjoyment. We're still passionate about the business, building what we're building. Like we were very positive about the space and we loved what we were doing. So I think we still we want to keep doing this. So not too much deviation and celebration. I think we're still all in on building this and kind of growing it as part of Xero. Yeah.
I never doubted that. I think the point is it wasn't the ending of the book. It was just a new chapter, right? Or maybe a
Agreed.
new act, let me put it that way.
Yes.
And a very exciting one at that, because I think makes me think about when I spoke to Luke and Claude from Superbalist, now Bash. It's like a very different ball game when you're actually able to work in an organization that really has like true leverage, true scale and resources that you can use. Because now, whenever with the ambition that you have, it's like, oh, there's a lot more achievable in a shorter frame of time just because of what it is that we have access to. So things actually get a lot more exciting at that point.
Exactly. It's pretty much exactly that. We've kind of accelerated our roadmap. What we maybe would have done over the next 5 years, we'll probably achieve by like the end of this year. So, which is cool. It's kind of like well aligned. So maybe a few other things. Yeah, this kind of stars just align with the deal, and maybe that is like the long-term relationship just like coming into play as well. But yeah, lots to do through an acquisition, and they're not easy. And I think we were fortunate, software business is not overly complex. It's kind of just like salaries, customers. There's not many expenses besides salaries, so that makes it a bit easier. Customers, and kind of them getting a sense of that. So I think we're also fortunate that the business was relatively simple from like a DD perspective and easy to kind of progress through that. And then the legal side of things is always like a back and forth and quite a bit to do there, but also managed to get through that process. I think all kind of doable.
Yeah, so let's go back. I mean, we jumped to celebration because obviously, like, to the exciting stuff. But back to the due diligence, right? I think what was, I mean, what was easier than expected, or as easy as expected, is the fact that it's not a very complex business, right? So I think what you're doing is complex, right? But the
The
actual
product.
business,
Yeah.
yeah, the product and the market and everything is complex, but the actual business structuring isn't very. It's not exactly like you are. It's not like you have a vertically integrated supply chain with like multiple physical operations. So talk to me about. You mentioned now. I think what was easier. What was a bit of a curveball? Like, were there any of them that happened in the DD process?
Not really. I think we managed to work through everything. I think the legal side is always challenging because you have to use outsourced providers for that.
On
They've
both
got
sides?
on both sides. Yeah, they've got a local big firm. We had to appoint a local big firm. I think pre-legals.
Why?
I think it's
Is
just
that
the
just like a
way,
legislative requirement for a listed
not
entity?
legislative, but I think kind of expected in like an M&A transaction. I think from their side, they want to appoint like a big firm, and you don't really have to appoint a big firm, but I think it also gives a bit more credibility using like a big five name on it. Um, yeah, I'd say the DD was relatively easy because we could manage that all internally. We knew the business across customers, finance, people, product, engineering, and that's just the four of us founders being able to like collate that information and provide it. So we could run all of that internally. As soon as you start bringing in external people, you've got to like brief them, make sure they're on the same kind of pathway. And I think a software business is inherently like quite intangible, and like from a legal perspective, it's hard to set certain things in like stone because software businesses move really quickly. So I think the legal side was probably the most challenging just because we couldn't run it all ourselves and we had to use third-party counsel, but it progressed really well as well. And I think we got there got there in the end, which was quite cool, and got it over the line. So learned a lot through the process as well.
Can you be specific about what was challenging? Because I can imagine it's more just though like the IP side of it is like what it is actually IP here.
That's a good question too. I think IP, we never really considered IP. I know a lot of people want to structure IP offshore, which in reality becomes very difficult because you need like physical presence in those markets to justify that the IP is being built there, but also physical presence from very senior people. So we were always South Africa based, resulting in our IP being based in South Africa, which is all good from our side. I think when we're, maybe talking to the legal side of things, when you're setting like future goals and let's say milestones for the business, it's quite difficult for a software business to like draw those in the sand. Specifically, if I was to go acquire another business, I might say I want the business to generate 20% revenue growth over 3 years, and it's an easy milestone to set. But when you're building in like a product and a software space, you're going to iterate on feedback. You're going to maybe change the roadmap. So we needed to try accommodate for some of that stuff, which isn't the easiest in like a legal world where you've got to be quite certain and definitive. But I think we managed to get there in the end. But probably can't say too much about the deal and the confidentiality on this one, Cameron. So I can't go into too much detail on like what else was challenging, just because it is like a confidential agreement.
Yeah, I'll always push as far as I can until you establish the boundary, and I'll always respect it. That being said, I do have one question, and it can be answered more abstractly than in specifics. Um, but it seems that from what you're saying is where the complication came down to, and it's like this is really like right at the end of like we're committing to the deal because it's now around the fact that it's like it's basically there are certain strategic or performance objectives and milestones that we want to be able to hit. And it's more when things got a bit challenging is negotiating that because it's like once that's signed, like there's no working around that. So it's kind of that conversation of like, sure, what's realistic, what's ambitious, based on like where we think things are going and doing that. And I think also the it's maybe a different ball game when you're getting, oh, here's the target that Xero is expecting of you versus the one that you already expected of yourself. It's like, where did those two zeros come from?
Yeah. Yeah, true. Exactly. I think that's exactly it. Because you also don't really know how to set those things. You've also got limited information because you're sitting in your business. But in this future world, it's a merged business, and you don't have all the information on Xero's side around like reach, activity. Like there's certain variables you just don't know. So you target setting with like incomplete information, which I think is also challenging, and it's material and also like 3 years out. So it's like the hardest thing to set because you don't know what's possible in it. But I think we've always like backed ourselves and we're like, we can do it. I think we back the team, we back like the time horizon. So we've always, and I think the relationship also carries these things through. If we've known Xero for really long, we knew the people for really long. So you also kind of, yes, there's the legal agreements, but there's like a bond that you formed and like a promise we've made to them to deliver, and likewise from their side. So although legals are important in any deal, we still, and I think we've always kind of taken the approach that it's more the substance of it that's important, and the people. So we'll rely on those, but you never really want to rely on a legal agreement. Let's be honest. Would you ever want to go have to sue someone for 10 years in a South African court? Like that would suck. You'd rather just probably walk away. So our approach has always been we'd rather go on like the relationship and the people, and kind of deliver from our side.
Yeah, 100%. So what I want to know now is throughout that experience, and I'd be curious to know if there was a meaningful, noticeable difference, like just post conclusion of the deal or now 6 months down the line. But basically what I want to know is like, have there been any noticeable changes in your like ambition, your motivation, your drive, your like performance standards, your expectation of what's possible, just like your frame of reference of, what it was like before versus now, just because of the nature of the entity you're now working with?
I think so, and it probably comes in waves as well. So for me personally, I had a child like 2 months ago, so that was
Congratulations.
thank you, but distracting in terms of, suddenly you've pivoted. There's a lot happening. It's like April of this year, you're 4 months into the acquisition, you start focusing quite a bit on that, and then post that. So I'd say for me personally, it's probably been like a roller coaster of ups and downs and like focus and intensity. I'd say like very focused and like intense now, and keen to like keep building it. So it's still exciting because the business is growing from like a people perspective and customers we serve. And that's kind of keeping the drive and like the fire lit. So I'd say definitely different though, because, maybe 6 months ago we were focused on making like, worrying about like payroll and doing this. So the focus and the priorities have changed. Now we're focusing more on like scaling both people and customers. Um, I would say, yeah, there is a change because you focused on different things. Certain things are taken care of for you, which is quite cool because suddenly you've got like a bigger back office, and that kind of helps like eliminate that. But on top of that, there's more like integration stuff to do. So that kind of offsets the time you're winning from this bigger the back office team. Um, but yeah, I'd say we're all pretty fired up now at the moment. I think that the deal also incentivized that quite well, giving us like um, that 40 million upfront and 30 million over 3 years. A lot of the deal is over the next 3 years. And not that we're all about like the money and the remuneration, but it is cool because it does set like good goals for us. I think we've always been like we've always wanted to make money as like business owners. And yes, we also want to like build a great product and scale analytics, but the deal worked well. I think the vision worked well. So maybe a number of factors keeping like that fire lit and us not being like, I want to check out and go play golf at like midday. So yeah.
It just all in all sounds like a good deal in terms of all parties, right? I mean, it's like you still have that internal drive and motivation around what you're building because it's still your team, it's still your culture. You still have that carrot on the end of the stick. You also still have this package that's still tied into the success of Xero at the end of the day. But it's also
Exactly.
the way that it was done in the due diligence process, and also just the deal making process was done in a way that seemed very honest, right? And very fair to both parties, which means that to continue this, nothing's going to change in a worse way. It's only going to improve once things are moving forward, at least on a leadership perspective.
Yes, agreed. So yeah, I definitely feel that resonates a lot with me, and yeah, I think we're in like a good space. We still like relatively young as like a founding team in our 30s, where we don't really want to retire and do nothing. A lot of our friends are at the business as well. We enjoy working here, so there's lots of like little things and like interpersonal relationships that also like keep you coming back. There's like the money, the vision, the people. So all of that's still in place, Cameron, which I think helps. And maybe hard to get that right in other acquisitions, but maybe just like good timing for us where we worked with Xero a lot, and kind of we're still passionate about the space.
100%. Cool. Okay, so we've concluded the deal, right? Now things get really challenging because now it's change and a lot of it, and people usually don't respond too well to that. Um, Talk to me about what happened next, right? What was once the due diligence process was over, the transaction happened, the deal, the contracts were signed. What now? What was the next step? Was there any changes in was there an IT onboarding process? Was like an email thing, like acknowledgement? Like what happened?
Yeah, I'd say lots of that stuff. I mean, we signed the deal in September last year, and we pretty much kept it a secret from the team until then. We wanted to make sure it was done and dusted rather than like bringing it up too soon. Xero being like a listed company, you also it's market sensitive information, so we had to keep it under wraps from that perspective. So told our leadership team on like the Sunday, told the team on the Monday, and then the deal was announced on the Tuesday. That kind of kicked off. So this is like September last year, and the deal sort of closed in December last year. But yeah, lots to do. So new emails, migration of our Google Workspace into Xero's. The Xero team's quite distributed. The bulk of the team sit in Australia and New Zealand. A lot of the leadership team in the US. So it does mean lots of like early calls and late calls with colleagues overseas, which can be quite challenging for the team. Um, I'm trying to think back to like what was tough. Probably like there's work streams across everything. product, engineering, finance, people. So I mean, there's lots of things to consider. We're gonna like move payroll. We're gonna move this. Um, we're gonna,
Well,
we
besides being tough,
yeah.
sorry to interrupt, but I was just like, just whether it was tough or not, just what happened? What did you need to do in this integration
Sure.
process? Talk to me as
Um,
if I've never been through an acquisition, because
Yeah,
I
I think,
haven't.
we'd moved our emails from like Syft to Xero. So our emails moved like that, which is easy days. That's all done by the Xero team. So you just kind of log into your new email. Xero uses like various security systems that you'd need to set up. So laptops essentially had to be reformatted with new security software loaded on them. But all of that can be done in like a week per se. So actual impact to most people in the team was quite limited. It was kind of like a new laptop and a new email and a new password and download various apps that you need. But we've kept a lot of our infrastructure the same. We still host on Google Cloud, whereas Xero's on AWS. So we haven't like migrated everything
Yeah,
across.
so I can imagine that would be challenging, because that's
Yeah,
a product migration. That's not just a business migration, and that's a
exactly.
whole different
It's
kettle of
easy to
fish.
do like email and some documents and some new laptops. We've teched out the office with like new access control and like video conferencing stuff from Xero.
Okay,
Other
so yeah,
actual,
that's the easy stuff, right?
the easy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, from a product perspective, was there any change required, or was it just like keep doing what you're doing?
Pretty much, again, we've got these two products now. The existing Syft product, which is what Xero bought, Syft standalone, call it, where you log in on Syft's websites. And now we've got this new product where we're embedding, and it's not really new, but we're taking like the best parts of Syft standalone and we essentially like making them a little bit lighter and little bit more like small business friendly, and we're embedding those in Xero. So that's the biggest lift, because that's essentially scaling from like 100,000 businesses to millions of businesses. And there's a lot of work to be done there, Cameron. So that's around like, what's the best parts of this? How do we show it in a good way? A lot of it's quite similar to what you'll see on Syft. So later this year, if you're using Xero, you'll see probably around October, November for South Africa, you'll see the embedded Syft stuff land. We live in a few other markets, but it's very similar to what's on Syft. It's kind of just formatted in a Xero UI for now. And that's probably the biggest lift, where I'd say probably 80% of our engineering, design, and product teams are focusing on this embedded analytics. Yeah, to kind of serve this like small business integration. So that we wouldn't have done if we weren't acquired, because that's completely bespoke to Xero. But it's epic for us because it allows us to serve millions of customers. So we want to do that.
Yeah, 100%. Where would you say you are now in that kind of integration roadmap, right? So, I mean, you've been built into like the more the business infrastructure of Xero, and that's kind of been handed over. The products and tech infrastructure still fundamentally remain the same. There's been a kind of slight shift in prioritization from a development capacity perspective. I'm focusing on what needs to be built on the Xero side. What other changes happened within the business
Yeah, I'd
during
say,
this
I
time?
mean, as I said, we're 6 months in now, and even pre the deal closing, we had started to like kind of get cracking with the integration between September and December, and that brings us to like June of this year. Uh, Pretty far, I'd say all that integration stuff's done. We like officially Xeros. I've got Xero t-shirts and a Xero lanyard that I should be wearing because it's part of the security requirements. So that stuff we did pretty rapidly. I'd say like a month or two. There's still other systems that, we look at like the tech stack of Xero and the tech stack of Syft. There were certain tools we could consolidate because Xero was already paying for them or had alternatives. So some of our systems that we were using, let's say it's like Calendly for email scheduling, we could migrate that to Xero's license. So there was a lot of like tech stack integration stuff, but we probably knocked that stuff off within like the first 60 days, I would say. There are some bigger things to consider. I'd say maybe like migrating our CRM or migrating some of our like support tools are bigger projects because they're inherently much bigger than just like an email or a calendar scheduling tool. So those will take
Such
longer.
as?
like CRM, we use Pipedrive. If we move Pipedrive, we'll move that to Salesforce, which is what Xero is using. So
Yeah,
bigger
and you're gonna need
migration.
your own implementation partner just to do
No, I
that.
agree. I've definitely outsourced that one. So yeah, things like that are bigger projects, and Xero's got their Salesforce set up. So we need to consider, what works for Syft on that environment. So I don't think we've had to rush any of those. That sort of stuff can always be challenging in an integration because you want to run the business. You don't really want to think about integrating tools or folding tools. So that stuff can be like painful in terms of an integration. But I think we try as like a team, we try shield like the people in the team from that sort of noise so people can focus on doing their job, like talking to customers or building product. So we try shelter them from that and consolidate that with kind of certain people so that it doesn't impact the team too much.
Quick one, while I have your attention, I've built something for you. It's called the Founder Roadmap, and it's designed to give you sharp clarity on where your business is leaking time, energy, and money, and exactly what to do about it. In just 15 minutes, you'll see how scale ready your business really is, where you're stuck, where you're leaking cash, and what to focus on next. Now, this isn't some generic theoretical download. It's built from everything I've learned across 120 plus episodes of the Founder Files and working directly with over 150 founders. This is totally free, there's no sign up, and there's no email request. Now, what's the catch? Well, there isn't one. I'm not doing this to market to you. I'm doing this because you've invested your time into the Founder Files. And because I'm so grateful for that, I wanted to invest my learnings back into you. So hopefully you can take some of the guesswork out of growth and build a business that doesn't fall apart the moment that you take a holiday. So, if you're serious about building something sustainable, not just busy, then this is the next best 15 minutes you'll probably spend on your business. So hit the link in the episode description and give the Founder Roadmap a go to get some of your time and money back. 100%. I think that's that just clicked something for me, which I'll just share openly. But just around, we can't ever get around complexity. It's just about where it kind of sits. And I've always thought about this as well, also from a product perspective. And I said in another podcast referring to Uber Eats. Extremely simple product to use, right? It's the reason why, well, just Uber as well, right? Just like extremely simple product to use, very like valuable, really easy to use. But think about how complex those are as businesses. Specifically, Uber Eats is like you're dealing with like logistics software. You have stock management, right? You need to be able to track timing and then driver, but then also these people aren't employees of the business and it's outsourced. It's like it's such a complex business to run. But
Agreed.
they've filtered all that complexity themselves, so the customer now doesn't have to deal with it. And so, but now what I've just clicked now as well from what you've said is that the same thing happens from a leadership perspective going internally within the business. Is that outside the business and also with the strategy and where we're going, there's so much complexity that we're in for that if I just had to open that gate up to the employees, there would just be wide eyes and anxiety and confusion and and it's like, no, you've just got a specific thing that you need to focus on. But the leadership is that filter of complexity, and what comes out of that filter into the employee base needs to be clarity, focus, and direction.
Yeah. So it's exactly that, let's take on the complexity and like centralize it. So that's probably back to your earlier questions around like some of my role has been absorbed doing like that sort of stuff just to keep our people on track. I think people are great when they're like doing what they love, and why have 80 people focused on this integration work when maybe like 10 could do it, 10 could get deep in it and like really focus on it, then like kind of cloud the waters or muddy the waters for the other 70 people. So that's always the approach we've taken, and I think it's worked relatively well. There's always going to be like question marks, with the team. When you announce something like this, the first thing like the team think is like,
Am
oh,
I
our
getting
job's
fired?
safe.
Yeah.
Are we consolidating and centralizing? So I think there was questions like that to work through. Lots of questions where, people want to know, is my role safe? Am I going to keep doing the same thing? What does this mean for me on a day-to-day? How is my remuneration impacted? So there's definitely those questions. Will my role change? Will my remuneration change? Am I still employed? I think you've got to get ahead of those questions. So, but maybe fortunate again being like in person, in office, like information spreads quickly. So I think we've been able to manage that message quite well. And yeah. I think
Yeah,
that's helped
first
integration.
question out the gate is like, am I getting paid in dollars now? And it's like, no, I'm sorry, not quite.
1-to-1 conversion, please. Um,
um, no, cool, man. And I think it also just like speaks to it, right? Is that as entrepreneurs, we kind of live and breathe complexity, uncertainty, the unknown. It's like, well, entrepreneurs as leaders, right? That's like that's part of it. The point as an employee is that there's I think that's what that trade-off of risk really is it's not just the risk of um success or failure falling onto you, but it's that burden of uncertainty and complexity that you filter, where someone who's an employee is like, these are the biggest three things I worry about. Is like, am I going to be doing the same thing on a daily basis? Am I going to still be paid the same? And the company that I identify with, is that changing too? After that, it's like, cool, that's all I needed to know. I'm like, thanks for telling me.
Yeah, and yeah, I think we're happy to dive into it. You're going through an acquisition. It's natural that there's going to be changes and big changes, and at the end of the day, we are a Xero company now, so we're happy to make those changes. It does make sense. We've always been like a fan of like do things quickly, as quick as possible, as early as possible. If we're going to change something in 6 months, let's just change it now and like rip the band-aid off and go through it, because there'll be more learnings over the next 6 months, which means by the time we get there, the process will be improved. So we've always wanted to like dive into any change as quickly as possible.
So on that, right? What else is left on the integration? What else do you need to kind of complete for you to be like, okay, cool, we are fully as part of the Xero ecosystem?
I'd say our blood is blue, Cameron. We moved over quite quickly. I'd say even probably by like the end of Feb, 2 months in, we were fully over to Xero. There is little, like as I mentioned earlier, system migrations and some significant ones at that. But with those, I'd say the systems are too regularly used by too many people to, I know, back to my earlier point, let's just rip the band-aid off and dive in. But then
Yeah,
you
but
also
that's
bring,
proper disruption now.
yeah, that's proper disruption, which would mean to like customer dissatisfaction. So there we'll
Or
tread a
or
little bit
you'd
more.
slow sales down, and it's like, I'm not doing either of those
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
We can just
It's going to
we can just
impact
deal with this.
revenue. Then then you take the decision a bit more carefully. So I wouldn't say anything like too material. I'd say it's gone really well. I think it would be, we are quite far. It's a very global company. We are quite distributed. The closest Xero people we have is the team down in Cape Town. So it's been cool getting our team closer to Xero worldwide. We've deployed people to Sydney, Auckland, the US. And so this is people from Johannesburg now migrating and working in Xero offices. So I think we've done a lot in 6 months, where not just have we moved like systems and integrated those, but we've also deployed our people internationally into Xero offices just to drive the distribution of Syft globally and work closer with the Xero team. So yeah, I wouldn't say anything like pressing, which is cool. I think it's like we've emerged from that distracting work, and it allows us like the freedom to continue to work on like the work we want to work on, which is obviously no one wants to work on the integration work because it has to be done, but it's not like the exciting building and scaling people and customers.
So now that you are working on the stuff that's exciting you, going back to the building and scaling, I mean, I still like, you mentioned the thing of what you want to achieve in 5 years, you can now probably achieve in the rest of this year, right? So I guess what is the next 6 months look like for you? Like, what is the rest of 2020 to 2025 mean? What are you excited about? What do you see happening?
Awesome. So it's all about rolling out this embedded analytics solutions to Xero customers, and by the end of the year, that will be across every Xero customer, which is quite cool. We started in the US, so every US customer over there, Xero customer, has access to some visualizations on Syft. Well, in Xero from Syft, it's called Analytics Powered by Syft, is like the banner you would see in Xero. We're rolling out to Australia next, then the UK, and then South Africa. And we'll continue to add more and more functionality. It mainly centers on our visualizations and dashboards, but also our short-term cash flow forecasting tools. So that's pretty cool. We're going to be serving millions of small businesses directly in Xero, but we're also scaling our standalone product. So the standalone product we kind of mentioned it in the start of the conversation, but it's a great fit for accounting and bookkeeping firms to deliver insights to their clients. And Xero's got tens and tens of thousands of these accounting and bookkeeping firms that use Xero, provide Xero to their clients. And it's a great value add for Xero now to go back to these channel partners, being accountants and bookkeepers, and start providing them with access to Syft as an advisory tool to provide these insights to clients. So you as a small business, if you came to Syft standalone, you'd still have to uh, buy Syft if you wanted it, or you could use Syft, which is embedded in Xero, like the lighter version. But for accountant and bookkeepers, we've got like really awesome sort of bundled programs that allow them to get access to specific parts of Syft to scale the advisory side of their firm. So that's pretty cool too. That's kind of on the other side. Yes, we're going direct to small business, but accountants and bookkeepers were our bread and butter. And we've got thousands of them as customers that we used to work with, but now we want to scale that also to like tens of thousands. And what's cool in that channel is it's kind of my background being an accountant and bookkeeper. I know there's a use case for it. So pretty cool to get like a advisory tool that enables reporting and sort of insights into the hands of more accountants and bookkeepers. So our product and engineering teams will focus on the embedded solution, and our sales teams will focus on getting more accountants and bookkeepers from Xero to use Syft as a standalone product.
Okay, so you've explained that as a almost like it's been a change in strategy because it's at the point you originally started off with the accountants and bookkeepers. I mean, you would have expanded through smaller businesses as well. Has the shift been that it's like, okay, well, we're going to let Xero take care of the smaller businesses and let the analytics powered parts like kind of solve that part, and we're going to just double down on the almost the B to B solution. Right, it's where they and it's like and that's our strategy now, where we're just going totally bullish on that market.
It is a good question because I'd say originally we were probably like a 90-10 split, let's say 3 years ago. 90% of our revenue came from accountants and bookkeepers and 10% from small business. When we were acquired, it was sort of a 50-50 split, 50% small business, 50% accountants and bookkeepers. But now, if you think of the B2B2B, where we go into accountants and bookkeepers, there's naturally a higher propensity for using Syft. They've got 100 small business clients, maybe 20 of them they would like to deliver advisory and reporting services to. So it's an easier fit for those conversations. And I guess Xero
It's an easier
having
sell.
easier sell tens and tens of thousands of these accountants and bookkeepers worldwide, it's natural to go after that low-hanging fruits on Syft standalone. Whereas small businesses, yes, they can still come to Syft and get support, chat to our sales team. We'll reach way more businesses via the embedded product within analytics, well, within Xero. So analytics powered by Syft within Xero. That's a great solution for most businesses. And you wouldn't really need to come to Syft unless you're more like a bigger small business where you've got multi-entity or need something else. But yeah, a bit of a change of strategy. We've always like favored that segment, accountants and bookkeepers, for Syft standalone, just because if they're serving 100 customers, they've probably got a higher willingness to pay for our product because they're going to make more money from it. Whereas a small business only has one entity, so one business, do they need it? So you're right, maybe small business on Xero, accountants and bookkeepers on Syft, you can look at it as like a high level kind of strategy, but I think it works well and it allows us to still move quickly because I think we're also limited, we're scaling the team, but we can't do too much all at once as well as 80 people. We'll try to do as much as possible, but I think that's low hanging fruits for the win.
I think it also benefits Xero because it's kind of it's a different, let's say, arm and channel, right? So let's say
Yeah.
that you're going into the bookkeepers, the accountancies, the outsource or the fractional CFOs, managers, whatever, right? And if they happen to be using a competitor's products, but then they come across Syft, right? Then there's another in for Xero to get into to now compete with than if they were just going, head on, because the switching costs of that can be quite high. But now if they use Syft, it's like, okay, this is really good. By the way, it was well integrated with Xero. This would make it a lot easier, and they get a lot of value from Syft. It's something that could really also be an approach towards getting business from the competition.
You spot on there, and our integration on Syft is deepest with Xero. So you may want to use it with Xero versus some of the other accounting tools where one or two features would be a bit limited. And then that bundled offering of Xero plus Syft for advisory is like really compelling and affordable, where instead of paying another accounting provider plus paying for Syft, you could come to Xero and get this at like a much reduced fee. Maybe it does make migration to Xero more attractive. Yeah.
Oh, getting out of my own strategic hypotheticals here.
Nice.
What happens from yeah? Talk to me about 2026 onwards. What does the future look like for you now that once this year's done?
Yeah, it's sure. I haven't even thought that far ahead. It's a, a bit of a curveball for me. Um, well, we'll keep going. I think we want to keep building out that embedded solution. What you'll get by the end of the year there, Cameron, is like visualizations, a dashboard, and a short-term cash management
Am I
tool.
gonna get my red and green arrows?
You'll get them in like visualizations, but you'll have to come to Syft standalone and probably pay us money to get those
Cool.
up and down arrows. We've got some nice ones, I must say, and you can even format the whatever colors you like on those arrows. So we're going to do more in Xero. So we'll start adding more functionality like benchmarking that you as a small business, you may want to compare to other sort of consultancies and see where they're trending, number of customers, maybe like average fees charged, things along those lines. So we'll keep adding more to embedded Xero, but where it makes sense. I think we also don't want to overwhelm you as the user with like 300 features in insights. You probably want to look at like 4 or 5 key things. And I think like that will tie into sort of our dashboard. Winning for accountants and bookkeepers, as I say, my history is accountants and bookkeepers, and we'll keep building that out. We Xero, let's say, tens and tens of thousands of accountants and bookkeepers. We can't reach all of them next month. We'll keep kind of trotting along and adding them to the Syft standalone platform. So it's probably just scaling down those 2 channels, Cameron. I wouldn't say there's anything like major or difference. It's kind of scale the embedded solution with more functionality, scale Syft standalone to more accountants and bookkeepers is kind of the goal. So that's probably 2026. Keep building the team and kind of executes on those. So strategy is pretty set, which as a bootstrapped business pre-Xero, we probably only planned like 3 months ahead and we could turn like at any point. But now we have kind of planned, let's say, the next 2.5 years ahead around scaling those 2 channels. Let's double down on that, which is cool, and it gives us focus, but it's also quite different from where we used to kind of make decisions on like a whim and maybe pivot the business from one day to the next because we thought there was like an opportunity in a certain space.
Awesome, man. There's a lot of topics that we thought we were going to get into, but didn't quite in this conversation. But we have run out of time, and for this, it's already just been so good, and there's such good quality. I love the fact that we're able to get so deep in the acquisition, and thank you for sharing that. So to just wrap it up, I guess you can pick now. But what's the one question that I haven't asked you that I should have asked you that you'd like to answer now?
Running a software business from South Africa, I think it can be challenging because there is like regulation and sort of roadblocks that South Africa has in place that makes it difficult to run a global business and uh, bill in multiple currencies to multiple customers. So I think what we nailed pretty early on was, yeah, I guess I need to get you a question from this though.
It's
Um,
okay.
so
Just keep
maybe,
going.
yeah,
I mean, you can give me the answer. We'll worry about what the question is at the end.
cool. I think South Africa has like regulation that does make it difficult to bill foreign customers in foreign currencies, which being like billing a US customer in rands doesn't make sense. They don't trust it and they don't know what it is. So I think we can do a lot as a country to kind of enable future software businesses because it's a net export for South Africa. We've always just brought money back to the country, but we do kind of score an own goal locally where we make it difficult for other software businesses to scale internationally, primarily because of like things like our exchange controls. So I guess our solution to that was to set up an entity into the US that handled billing and then ship all that money back to South Africa each year to cover running expenses. So yeah, that's kind of my recommendation is, or a question that I wish I knew earlier was kind of looking at that. We wish we had maybe set that up earlier. Kind of, we did set it up relatively early back in like 2018, but I think there's so many like kind of local roadblocks that kind of impact our businesses scaling globally. And that's kind of one of them. So yeah, I just hope we could make kind of local policy decisions better that enable future entrepreneurs to build global businesses that export services or products and bring more money back to the country.
Well, at the end of the day, South Africans are still extremely resourceful. And the point is, if you're not going to change the legislation to make it work for us, it means that there's more companies that are just going to register in Delaware.
And
And
go around
that's
it.
going to be the turnaround. On that
Yeah.
note, where did you domicile?
Delaware. We used
course you did.
Stripe Atlas and used that
Cool.
for billing. So yeah, it's I think it adds more complexity around like tax, legal structure, things like that. So maybe we just need more like knowledge on it. So we'll just go around the legislation by using these structures, but maybe that's another thing for like scale up businesses to look towards these structures in terms of kind of implementing them so you can have a global business off the bat. And I think software is pretty exciting. I think it's kind of like a hidden gem for South Africa. We can build great software businesses locally because we've got great talents and like a relatively low cost of labor, and we can ship this globally and really like build meaningful businesses out of SA, even if we're not physically present in like key markets.
Vangelis, thank you for sharing your story on the podcast, man. It's been awesome and an honor to get the behind the scenes view. Congratulations once again. Probably one of the most exciting exits to happen in South Africa, just in terms of also brand name as well. So for all the fintech founders out there, I think you can provide quite an inspirational story and a lot of practical value in this conversation. So thank you for sharing it, man. And yeah, they're really excited for your mission of working with millions of businesses and continuing to scale that.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for your time as well, Cameron. Enjoyed the chat.
I haven't exactly been through an acquisition before, so I don't really have much of a witty end point to say something valuable. So I'm going to leave it more on the fact that I'm just very grateful that I get to do this, that I get to have these really epic, in-depth conversations with founders about their business and their strategy. It's what I do every day. I was told actually quite recently that by one of the podcast guests that I've also worked with that, this has been something that really values because of having me as a thinking partner. And in this journey of whether you are getting acquired like you are with Syft, or you are pivoting, or you're scaling, or you're growing super quickly and the complexity in your business, in your strategy has gotten quite intense. And you want to really simplify it, not only for yourself, but for your team, for your investors, for your customers. Just bring a bit of clarity to the mix. That's what I do. I absolutely love it. I love being a thinking partner to, epic, ambitious entrepreneurs out there who want to get their thinking challenged, who's not going to get any bullshit or someone just echo chambering your thinking back to you. So if you want to kind of go from good to great in your thinking, if you want to sharpen iron with iron, if you want someone who's going to be a sparring partner, challenge you in your thinking, reach out to me. If you haven't got that experience within the first encounter with me, then I haven't really done my job. So have a reach out to me. Let's see how I can help you get some clarity and just be a bit of a thinking partner to you with whatever it is that you're going through. So click on the link in the description below. Let's have a call together and let's see how I can help you. But until then, and until next time, thank you once again for listening to another full episode of the Founder Files. I'm going to say it again. I love being here. I love doing this. And I love the fact that you do too. So thank you very much for showing up. I'll see you next time. Cheers for now.